Welcome to Ask the Attorney, brought to you by the Law Office of Chris Doscotch.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Stacy Campbell. This is Ask the Attorney. It is an opportunity for you to call in and ask questions. The number to call is 698-3742. You can actually begin calling right now. Again, that number is 698-3742. And our attorney this evening is Chris Doscotch. You are a familiar face on this program.
Hello.
So welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, and hello to everyone tonight.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, because you've been an attorney here in Peoria for a long time.
23 years.
That's a long time.
Was in the National Guard here when I was in college. Met my wife over in Galesburg, and she's from Fulton County, and so we've been in this area since, I've been here since 1987.
Okay, great. And you've got a practice on North Knoxville and also an office. And you are a personal injury lawyer.
Correct.
And so one of the things that I like about you is you really like to inform people about what they need to know so that maybe they don't need your services, which is great.
And we get to see the bad result of it too. And you know, there's a human face on every one of these cases, and there's a cost to the families, the people who are hurt, the medical, you know, the whole thing, and a lot of it is preventable.
Yeah.
And
so it's, you know, and by way of that, it's summertime, okay? Public service announcement from you. It's summertime. People are more active. There's a lot more motorcycles on the roadways.
And we were talking motorcycles. I think I put in a little bit about construction, and I was doing some reading the other day, and this is the time to ride motorcycles.
Yes.
Obviously, you're not riding in the winter, and roads are being worked on, and we're holidays. You know, I have a 17-year-old son.
Yeah.
They're on the roadway.
Right.
You have newer drivers because
Yes.
they're not in school.
Yeah.
People are out and about, more active, vacation, so you're just going to have a lot more traffic. And this is really when you see the spike in motorcycle accidents, injuries, and the same thing with construction accidents.
And I think we have a graphic that shows some interesting statistics about motorcycle accidents and the fact that people in cars aren't seeing them, which is what we really want, is people to see motorcycles.
Right, so, you know, if you look at here, we have our first one, is how many accidents there are a year, 269,000. That's what's reported to IDOT on those sheets you get when you're in an accident.
And this is from 2014, which is the last year that stats are available.
Last year's statistics. Then it shows how many fatalities there were in total, and of those, over 10% of them are motorcycle. And you look at 30 fatalities for construction zone people, workers, IDOT, construction companies. And like I said, I've got clients, family, we all have friends in that type of work, and it's just a reminder of, you know, they're so close to the roadway that just the extra 2 minutes is not going to make or break it.
That big of a deal, and you certainly would never want to kill anybody. And one of the things that you talk about with motorcycle accidents is that people aren't seeing them.
Right. I mean, some people say, oh, it's a motor, you know, it's not that drivers don't see them. I think everybody is susceptible to that. And so one of the statistics I found in looking at what the state put out was of car accidents, 14% are the highest percentage are rear end. It's 14%. For motorcycles, half of the accidents last year were cars turning left in front of a motorcycle. So that's 50%. 14. So what would account for that change or that difference is, you know, people aren't used to having a smaller vehicle turning left. And the reason this came up too is I have a case now in the area here where that just happened. 2 people on a motorcycle, person just turned left right in front of them, reported in the police report, person didn't see them coming at all. Witnesses verified it. And so, you know, when they say see motorcycles, you just have to be cognizant that right now they're out there and be looking for them, because one thing people have to understand, and I know people have opinions on they have the bicyclist, motorcyclist, if you're walking and across, you know, everybody has the same rights and has to follow the same rules of the road, and they're legal. And most people,
like you say, regardless of what people think about them, whether you like motorcycles or don't like them, they have the same rights.
And most people drive and ride their motorcycle. Most people drive their car safely. And it's the exception, but sometimes people have the exception in their mind rather than most of the time the motorcycle rider is just going along the road and somebody doesn't see them. So it's just a reminder of that.
You do represent motorcycle drivers that have been in accidents.
I've represented many motorcycle riders, a lot of friends, you know, just through knowing the community, and, you know, I'm an advocate for their rights too.
Yeah. I think we have a question coming in here. Again, remember you can call with your question 698-3742. Oh, we've got lots of questions, so let's see what we've got here for you, because that is what this is, Ask the Attorney.
Right.
This is from Donald. This says, in an accident, and it was not my fault. Both cars had the same insurance. They offered me only the amount of my medical bills. Is that good?
Okay. They got two parts to that question. One, insurance companies, if you have the same company on both sides, it's your company and theirs, they're not supposed to share information. That's the way it's supposed to be. But, you know, I don't know, I'm not there.
Yeah.
But that's the way it's supposed to be. But that's very common around here, is people have the same insurance company. Is it fair to get your medical bills? It depends on the facts. Whose fault it was, what was your injury, did you have pain and suffering, did you have lost wages? So every case is an independent evaluation. But it seems, and I think maybe we'll talk about this more, it seems like it might be a low-ball offer if they're not offering you anything for pain and suffering or wage loss. So unless there's extenuating circumstances, I would call a lawyer and talk to somebody at least about it before you sign off.
Right. Okay. All right. Here's one from Mary. If you sign a contract in a work comp case and settle, and the employer doesn't want to pay, what can you do? Sign a contract. You settle, the employer doesn't want to pay. What can you do? Well, they have to pay, don't they?
They have to pay. I've never had that happen, you know, and I don't know how many cases, you know, especially if there's an insurance company, if they don't pay on time, if it's more than 60 days, then you can get penalties for late payment and workers' compensation. In a personal injury case, they're supposed to pay within 30 days of signing the documents. So if they do not pay, you can file a pleading or paperwork in circuit court in the county where it's at, and you can get a judgment entered.
Okay. Here's a question from Dale. I had knee surgery and have to drive 50 miles round trip for my therapy. Do I have a right to be paid mileage?
Okay.
Good question.
So now this is a work comp question again. That depends. It depends, number one, do you have therapy available where you're at?
Okay.
Secondly, how far do you drive to work? That's one of the questions the judge, if you're driving 20 miles to work, you know, and you're having to drive all this extra distance for therapy, you got a better argument to get your therapy paid for. Okay. So I think those are the two main factors, but the only time that mileage has to be paid is if it's treatment that is directed by an employer and there's some type of agreement, but that's usually something that can be worked out. What I would say is, and I believe this to be, therapy is really important, and you don't want to let mileage get in the way of getting the best therapy you can get. So sometimes if you have to eat the mileage money, sometimes it's worth it.
It's worth it.
But the insurance company may understand because they want you to get better. So if your lawyer advocates for you, it's something you can turn in, or at the end of the case, you can use that as one of the things you talk about in resolving it.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, good questions. And we've got to go take a break right now, but we are going to be back with more of your questions. Keep them coming and keep it right here. Welcome back. This is Ask the Attorney. I'm Stacey Campbell. This is Chris Doscotch here with me, a Peoria personal injury attorney with a practice on North Knoxville and also an office in Lewiston. Been practicing here for 22 years. And we're going to switch gears a little bit now and talk about how you know whether or not you need an attorney. Because you say these days you pretty much need an attorney if something happens to you. Why is that?
Well, when I started out, even though I was probably supposed to tell everyone they need an attorney, you know, I don't think you needed an attorney as much, or you may be able to get by on your own. But over the last 10 years, and especially the last 5 years with workers' compensation changes, I think you need people need an attorney. If it's anything serious, you need an attorney. So we talked about it, and I came up with some things on why I think people do. The first thing is, and I've talked about it since I've started the show, you want to be proactive. If you call me after a problem, it's a little, you know, then you're reacting to the situation. An aggressive lawyer is anticipating, when I look at a case, I draw a line, the good, the bad, I get the records, and then kind of evaluate a plan, and we try and stay ahead of it. Second, insurance companies are using computers to evaluate cases, and that's the value. And people are not statistics and numbers, and you need someone to humanize you, and it's an accounting issue. Insurance companies are huge. They're the second largest corporations in the world industry, and it's for a reason. And so you need to have someone as an advocate. That's what they do for a living. Like I had mentioned before, and we've talked about work comp reforms, and they just passed more bills. I don't think the governor will sign them, but there's more changes to come, and it is definitely continuing in the trend downward. And then
you said to me too, and I think this is interesting, you had a lot of calls lately of people that have tried to try their own cases, and they just kind of they kind of ruin it.
Right, we've had a lot of people calling in, let's say they've had offers and they've settled a case and they want to reopen their case. Once you settle a case, it's settled. It's done.
Yeah.
If you go and try and do things on your own, it's not going to go well. I have a lot of people that are calling that have other lawyers that we were talking about, and then they want to. So it's not just, do you need a lawyer? You need to make sure you get somebody that fits your needs, that's someone that's competent, someone that's talking. I mean, you're not going to talk to the lawyer every second, but somebody that you're communicating with who is empathetic or has some compassion, but at the same point doesn't overpromise. Is very frank also about the realities of the case, because to give someone false hope is not good advice either. So you have to have that right mix, and somebody who's also willing to go to court. I think it's important, because they're going to pay more if they think you're going to litigate the case, you're going to spend money. So I think, for all of those reasons, and I do want to get in one other thing, because this is very important. Social media. I am guaranteeing you, especially in workers' compensation, I don't know as much in personal, but people are always asking for their Facebook information in cases. The employers are looking at it, they're looking for that. So you have to be, not that you have to be a prisoner if you have a case, but just remember, when you're publishing things online,
everyone can see it.
Right, and your lawyer needs to talk to you about these issues.
Okay, let's get to some more questions. This is coming from Amy in Germantown Hills. The work comp insurance wants me to sign a release for medical records. Do I have to sign it?
You don't have to sign any paperwork. Now, if you don't have a lawyer like we're talking right now, you have less control, because you can't expect somebody to pay for a claim without seeing your medical records. You could theoretically order them and send them in yourself, but that's normally not going to fly. So, I mean, I would say, even in some cases, you're going to have to let them get your records. As an attorney, I'll screen and protect private information, but also what you don't want is a lot of the releases not only are for records or bills, but allow them to write to your doctor, call your doctor, ask questions, and that's called an ex parte communication, and that is violating the privilege between the patient. And I do not ever let the insurance company call the doctor to either get involved in treatment, to ask questions about causation or disability, because they're not asking it in a way that's going to help your case. They're trying to minimize their exposure or what they would have to pay. So it's very important that you don't allow anybody to write or discuss with your doctor privately if you don't have a lawyer screening the paperwork.
Okay, that's good information to have. This is from Kevin in Peoria. I missed 3 weeks of work because I was in a car accident. The insurance company won't pay me until the case is over. Is this right?
In Illinois, and I think we've had a show touched on this before, is a fault state. So if you have somebody who is in a severe accident and they can't work, they're not going to get paid until the case is over, or that's leverage that the insurance company has to force someone to settle early. So I would say not never, but maybe on one hand you can count the number of times an insurance company has advanced money on a case to somebody who is hurt. They are normally never going to pay until you sign on a dotted line saying my case is closed. Which that can be a real problem for people, because if they don't have health insurance or they're losing wages and don't have a disability plan, how do you survive and pay your bills? Then you're stuck with borrowing from a bank, borrowing from family and friends, and we know how that works out. It never works out well for the people loaning the money usually. And then thirdly, or you have to take out a lawsuit loan, and those which is not, you know, the interest rates on those are not what you would call very favorable.
I wouldn't think so.
Unfortunately, that's the case.
Okay. Here's a question. This person says he was hurt in a car accident and had surgery. Can't work for 10 weeks. He was paid in cash. Can he still get paid for the lost wages?
I would say theoretically, yes, if it's that year and you say you were going to pay taxes.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about something from the calendar year before, you know, we all have an obligation to report our income, and this happens frequently. And if you can't produce, one of the things in a case that is requested is your tax records. So if you're making a wage loss claim, they're going to send a request for production, a document. They want proof of lost wages. So they're going to look for W-2s, 1099s. So not only do you have documents, but if you're not paying taxes on it, it's kind of hard to get in front of a jury and say, here, pay me for this cash that I was not going to pay my taxes on.
Right.
So I think it's a very hard ask, and I generally do not want to do that.
Okay. I think we can't stress enough the importance of talking to an attorney in a workers' comp case. I mean, we've talked a lot about how complicated the laws are, and I mean, just these questions and your answers just prove it to me. It's so important to talk to an attorney.
It is, and you know, another thing is how you report your injuries. You know, what we talk about, we got this back up here now, what we were talking about earlier, like F, medical records and history. You know, how you, that is the most, that's the best piece of evidence in a case. A judge looks at, what did you tell the doctor and the nurse? Well, they're not worried about your case, so they may just be jotting down part of it. It may be out of context. So when you talk to your lawyer, how did you report your injury? How did you say it happened? So for example, I have someone who says that, you know, they were just sitting down and the chair rolls out. Okay, hypothetically, and this is something I see. Well, they had work papers in their hands, so they couldn't grab it. So as they were doing it, that little bit of, how would they ever know that?
Right.
But that really becomes crucial to the case. So when they talk to me, a repetitive trauma case too, how their job duties are, how many times they do it, their positioning. It helps that you talk to a lawyer beforehand to explain to the doctor, because the judge is looking at, your doctor's not looking at a case, they're just wanting to document what's wrong with you. But improving your case, we kind of help facilitate what you got to tell them.
Okay. Well, I think we have time for one more question in this break. I fell at work on the stairs. The work comp insurance is denying my case. Is this a case? Shouldn't it be because it happened at my work? Okay,
two things there. One, if it happens at work, it doesn't mean it's a case.
Okay.
That's not the law. That's called positional risk. You it's got to be in the course of your employment or right before coming to work, and it's got some risk arising out of your job.
Okay.
You do it more than the general public does. There's some type of defect. You're doing a job task. So unfortunately, I can report, you know, we have a case right now on appeal where someone coming down, which I think there was a defect, but falls on stairs. If you don't know what caused you to fall and there's no defect, the work comp is going to the extreme of saying, well, we all traverse stairs every day.
Right.
How is that a work-related risk?
Okay.
Then you're getting into, well, how many times are you going up and down, and it becomes somewhat absurd sometimes, but but that's what it comes down to. So for that case, unfortunately, it's going to depend on the facts, and again, it's another reason to talk to a lawyer early, because if there is a defect there, go get a picture of it before it gets fixed, or a measurement or something like that.
Okay, all right, good advice. Well, that is all the time we have right now, but we are going to be right back with more of your questions, so stick around. Welcome back to Ask the Attorney. I'm Stacey Campbell. This is Chris Doscotch, and we touched on this a little bit before, but I wanted to get more into it because I think it's important. How do you know if you have a competent attorney or not?
Well, first off, I'll say most lawyers are, you know, like in any profession, and people know what they're doing. But I do think it's important, you know, and what we try to pride ourselves in is that we try to take care of the clients. We talk with them. If it's not myself, my staff, you get your phone calls returned. And what we were talking about earlier is you get honest evaluation, and your lawyer can articulate a plan,
Yeah.
and it's
That would be a
actually
good thing, yeah.
put into action. So if you call back, they can say, oh, you're ordering these records, what did you find out? Or did you hear anything? And they can say, you know, if I'm not there, my staff can say, well, he called yesterday, or now it's a lot of emailing because
Yeah.
people don't talk on the phone, they're on the computer.
Well, you were saying too that your attorney should not promise an outcome because they can't.
Correct. At the end, when you get more information about the case.
Yeah.
But when you come in for the initial meeting, absent it being something clear cut that, you know, carpal tunnel surgery, back to work, full duty, I could
Yeah.
probably do it. But for the most part, if you've never seen a case to evaluate, the medical records,
Yeah.
you got to get to know your client. You don't have the police report if it's a case like that. You need all that information to do an evaluation. So why do you want to overpromise and then something else? Plus things can change in a case one way or the other. So it doesn't mean you can't give people an idea of, I think we have this, it looks like a good case, it's this, it's a substantial case. But at the same time, I just don't think if the lawyer's promising things, that to me is sometimes can be an alert for, you know, maybe
not a great attorney.
Yeah, or taught to, and like I said, most everyone does a good job, and you want to have someone you're comfortable with too, that you can talk to and you feel is listening to you.
And knows your case when you call.
Right, I may not be the best for one person, someone else may be better, but you want to make sure you have that, because I see that, you know, all the time. And so talk to your lawyer, spend that time at that initial meeting, and if hopefully they'll take the time to talk to you, you can get some rapport.
Okay.
You know,
that's good stuff. So you can call with your questions. We still have time, 698-3742. We have one here from Kim in Pekin. I'm a housekeeper and my hands are numb. I think I have carpal tunnel. Is this a case?
Okay, Kim, on that case, it could be. This is one of the areas where I will call it the war on carpal tunnel.
Yeah,
And
it's complicated,
it's complicated, so you're not using air tools as a housekeeper or anything like that. So these cases are getting more scrutiny. More of the cases are being denied. It's really a fact-based situation. So this is where, again, having a lawyer right away documenting what your activities are, how often you're using your hands, how repetitive it is, what your gripping is. I mean, it literally comes down to how much do you flex and extend your wrists.
Yeah.
Do you have other risk factors such as diabetes, hypothyroidism, rheumatoid arthritis? There's all these other risk factors. And another thing to note is work doesn't have to be the only cause. It only needs to be a cause.
Oh, really? Oh,
So
I didn't know that. Okay.
if being, one of the risk factors is female can cause it, why can't, mopping all day, as one of the factors, because that is a risk factor. So, but your lawyer should be able to advocate that way. It's just that they're getting tougher. The judges are requiring more proof. So your doctor can't say, well, it's work related because they said it hurts at work, or the patient says it is. Your doctor has to understand what your job duties are so that there's a basis for that opinion.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question here from Rick. I was rear-ended by a drunk driver and went to a chiropractor. I'm done being treated. What is my case worth? Rear-ended by a drunk driver, went to a chiropractor, done being treated. What's his case worth?
Well, if you're hit by someone in aggravated liability situation, like drunk driving, juries, so insurance companies then will be more liable or more willing to pay money because nobody wants to be nice to a drunk driver who injures people. So that's the first factor. So that will make the value of the case go up. In terms of the injury, the damages are lost wages, pain and suffering, inability to do the things you like to do. Those are the main ones.
And every case is different.
And every case is different, so it'll depend on your medical. I mean, you haven't had a surgery. It depends what the doctor says your prognosis it was. It depends on the doctor's paperwork. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, and your medical bills.
Okay. Sue from Peoria wants to know, if you get injured, let's say in a store, and file a case, from the time the case is filed, how long does it take?
Okay, that's going to be 2 years.
Wow, okay.
Most of the time. And the only time it's a year would be as if it's some type of ownership is through a governmental agency. So if it's a county hospital, if it's, city hall, you know, any type of park district, anything that involves the government is generally a 1-year statute of limitation for adults.
Okay.
Children, there's different rules,
Okay.
but for that, it's generally a 2-year process.
Great. Well, that is all the time we have, unfortunately. Lots of good questions tonight.
Yeah, very good.
Thanks for being here. Any final words?
I just want to tell everyone thanks. Hope they have a great summer, and we'll be back in a couple months.
And see motorcycles, right? See
Exactly.
motorcycles. All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.